Chidinma's father kicked her out of the house and disowned her because she got pregnant out of wedlock. Everyone pleaded with him and begged him to forgive her, including Ngozi, her mother's friend. But her father stood his ground. 3 years later, he lived to regret it, when she returned with a shocking revelations. In the lively town of Ogudu lived Chidinma Obi, praised for her kindness, humility, and bright laugh. Mothers told their daughters, "Be like Chidinma," because she greeted elders, helped vendors, and never raised her voice. Her mother Ngozi called her "my moon." Her father, Chief Obi, a respected elder, called her "the joy of my old age." Then morning soured. Chidinma stopped singing, clutched her stomach behind the kitchen, and turned from favorite soups. Worried, Ngozi took her to Mama Esther, the midwife, with eyes like quiet water. After a gentle check, Mama Esther sighed. 6 weeks, she said softly. A child is forming. That evening, when Chief returned from council, the truth entered like harmattan wind. His cane struck cement. Pregnant, under my roof. Neighbors gathered at the gate, whispers rising. "Who is responsible?" he demanded. Chidinma's lips trembled, but fear pinned her voice. Silence swelled. Pride hardened. "You have disgraced my name," Chief thundered. "From today you are no longer my daughter. Leave." Ngozi knelt, begging, but the door inside his heart had closed. A raffia bag was thrust into Chidinma's hands. The gate groaned. She stepped onto the red road. Behind her, bolts slid. Ahead, evening smelled of dust. Barefoot, Chidinma walked past the stream where she once played, past verandas where she shelled beans with neighbors. Familiar faces turned away. Some whispered, "So the saint has fallen." Others sighed, "God help her." With only a raffia bag, she followed the highway until dusk. Hunger drummed against her ribs. She curled beside a shuttered shop and used the bag as a pillow. Mosquitoes stitched the night. Tears salted her wrapper. At dawn, passers-by gathered and stared. "Who are you?" a woman asked, voice neither harsh nor kind. "Chidinma," she said. "My father drove me out because I carry a child." The crowd dispersed, leaving one figure, a small woman with peppered hair. "I am Mama Kosi," she said. "You cannot sleep on stone. Come." Mama Kosi's house was 2 rooms with cracked walls and a coal pot stained by yesterday's stew. Yet the mat was clean, water warm. She rubbed Chidinma's swollen feet with shea butter. "Rest. You are safe here," she finally said. For days, kindness wrapped Chidinma like a shawl. Okra soup, fresh wrapper, humming when sickness twisted. Yet at night she heard low voices, coins clinking, a latch lifted. "Lodgers," Mama Kosi said. The word felt thin. Rain threaded the zinc roof. Chidinma woke to murmurs, drifting through the thin partition. She held her breath. "She has no one," came Mama Kosi's whisper. "Pretty child will fetch good money." A man's voice followed, oiled and certain. "And 500,000, tomorrow night." 600 in a bag of rice, Mama Kosi replied. "The mother trusts me." The room tilted. Chidinma pressed a palm to her belly and tasted iron. She returned to her mat and rocked herself, whispering. "No one will take you," she told the life within. "Not while I breathe." At first light, she tied her wrapper tight, tucked the raffia bag beneath her arm, and slipped into the damp morning. The street smelled of diesel and wet dust. She did not look back. By noon, she reached a market district where hawkers argued with radios. She begged for water. A woman waved her away with a broom. 2 boys laughed at her frayed hem. She found shade beneath a torn billboard and sat. A single kick tapped like a knock from inside. "I hear you," she whispered. "We keep going." The billboard promised paradise. The road ahead promised only endless distance, heat, glare, thirst, and stubborn breath. A neat sedan stopped. The window slid down. "You look faint," said a young man in a crisp shirt. "Eat first, talk later. I'm Kunle Adeyemi." He bought sachet water and jollof rice. Chidinma ate with shaking hands until warmth returned to her cheeks. "Where will you sleep tonight?" he asked. "I don't know." "Come, I have a spare room. The streets are unkind." His flat smelled of lemon polish and new curtains. He showed her a tidy room with a humming fan and soft sheets. For weeks he was generous. Fruits, vitamins, a doctor's card, even a second-hand bassinet because it matched the curtains. Gratitude thawed caution. Chidinma cleaned, washed, ironed collars, and simmered stews to repay him. Then the air shifted. His gaze lingered when she bent to lift a basin. Midnight footsteps paused outside her door. The handle tested and retreated. He lingered in doorways, smiling too long at nothing. She began locking the door and wedging a chair beneath it. "We are safe," she whispered to her belly, though her voice shook. The fan hummed. The house learned to hold its breath. Danger wore a smile, pressed, and waited like a cat near an open coop. Quietly, one night, metal kissed metal. The lock turned. Kunle stepped in with a smile that never touched his eyes. 4 months now, he said softly, sitting on the bed as if it were his. "I have carried you. Shouldn't you carry me?" "You promised safety," she whispered, gathering her wrapper. "In this city nothing goes for nothing," he replied, reaching for her wrist. The bell rang, once again impatient. He hissed, stood, and snapped the door shut behind him. He forgot the second key, hers. Hands shaking, Chidinma turned it, lifted the bassinet, grabbed her bag, and slipped through the kitchen into humid night. Barefoot, she ran until pavement thinned to sand and sand to church compound. A broken gate stood ajar. A dog barked once. A woman's torch sliced the dark. "Who is there?" "Please," Chidinma said, swaying. "Come, child," the woman answered, tying her scarf tighter. "I am Mama Ruth." Arms steadied her. The world tilted, then steadied again. For the first time in months, Chidinma felt hands that wanted nothing back. Somewhere, a fan kept humming in an empty room, pushing air around a promise he had already broken. In the compound, a lantern flickered like hope, refusing sleep. Morning smelled of soap and boiling rice. "Your baby is strong," Mama Ruth said, setting warm water beside the bed. The church sisters arrived with wrappers, diapers, and tiny socks stitched with yellow stars. Chidinma baked small cakes with Mama Ruth to feel useful, whisking batter while the choir practiced next door. One stormy night, the pains gripped and held. "Breathe with me," Mama Ruth whispered, counting thunder like metronome beats. Hours stretched, then broke. A wail rose, sharp, certain, full of tomorrow. Chidinma laughed through tears. "Chisholm," she whispered, "God is with me." They wrapped the child in clean cloth. Little fingers curled around Chidinma's pinky like a promise the world couldn't steal. Sleep came in sips. Gratitude poured like rain from leaking clouds. Dusk arrived with stillness. Mama Ruth hummed hymns that sounded like lullabies, smoothing Chidinma's hair with careful hands. They thanked God without speeches, breathing, holding the small miracle that refused to quit life. The choir sang while windows breathed after rain, gently. Mama Ruth opened the storeroom behind the church. "Use this," she said. "Ovens aren't only for bread. They bake futures." Brother Chaik built shelves from plywood offcuts. Sister Ify taught quick frosting with a spoon. Chidinma tested recipes until her wrists learned the weight of good batter. She stitched paper labels by hand. Chisholm's oven. She sold meat pies after service. Customers returned for the flaky crusts and stayed for her steady smile. Deacon Jonah brought a chalkboard and wrote, "Cost, margin, wage." "Pay yourself something," he said. "Dignity eats too." Chidinma saved in a peanut tin tucked behind hymnals. She bought a second pan, then a whisk that didn't wobble. At night she whispered to sleeping Chisholm, "Your name is a bridge. We'll cross plenty." Sometimes grief walked in without knocking, the memory of her father's cane striking cement, a door slamming like thunder. She burned those scraps of memory in a small tin outside, watched them curl into ash, and returned to kneading. Work kept sorrow from building a chair. Hope learned to sit anyway, swinging its feet in flower light. Orders trickled in. Birthdays, namings, a wake where pies vanished. She wrote receipts carefully, tracing each letter toward tomorrow. Back in Ogudu, the once busy Obi compound sagged. Paint peeled. Flowers drooped over cracked basins. Chief Obi's closest friend, Mr. Anayo, returned from the city with a watch that flashed like a fish. He spoke of oil contracts and fast returns. "Invest now," he said. 2 months, you'll thank me with a goat." Pride is easy to persuade. Chief sold a cocoa plot, then 2 family lands near the stream. He borrowed from elders. The money went into Anayo's scheme, papers stamped, seals pressed, phone calls lively, plans arranged at night. Then Anayo vanished. The phone rang into nowhere. Receipts looked theatrical, promises wilted, whispers travelled faster than dust. Where is his red cap now? Children giggled, then ran. Necker sold wrappers to patch debts and kept a tiny calendar in a drawer, marking each month with a red cross. At night, Chief sat with his stick across his knees and tasted regret like bitter leaf. He spoke his daughter's name into the courtyard air, just once, then again, as though teaching his mouth a forgotten prayer. Visitors thinned. Pride shrank to a small stool under the eaves. Rain leaked through the roof. Bowls caught it. Silence, louder than gossip, kept him awake. On a blazing Sunday, a woman in a lime jeel bought every pastry on Chidinma's tray and refused change. "You have grace," she said. "I am Madame Stella. Why bake under the sun when rooms with air conditioning exist?" Her mansion glittered. Marble floors, mirrors, chandeliers hung like frost. Young women in silk floated through halls, phones like fish. "I mentor," Stella cooed. "I place girls with important men who appreciate poise. No stress, discretion, luxury, upward doors." Chidinma nodded, but noticed their empty eyes. Laughter didn't land. Rules pinned on a corkboard about silence. Visiting hours, phones surrendered nightly. Cars arrived at odd times. Envelopes passed like secret birds. "You're special," Stella said, pressing a branded tote into Chidinma's hands. "Think about it." On the ride back to church, the tote felt heavy. She held Chisholm close that night and counted worries like beads. Kindness, she had learned, often wore perfume when it wanted payment later. Still, Stella returned the next week, then next, buying everything, praising posture, promising names. She flattered Mama Ruth, donated hymnals, slipped envelopes. Trust is a door with many keys, flattery tries all. Chidnma watched, smiled, and kept her questions in her pocket like folded notes. Thirst woke Chidinma near midnight in Stella's mansion. She stepped into the corridor for water. A door glowed. Voices threaded the dark. Stella's tone was honeyed iron. "Yes, Senator. Young. Fresh. She trusts me. Weekend is fine." Silence followed, the kind that breathes cost. The corridor seemed longer on the way back. Rules on the corkboard fluttered in the air from the vent. No photos, no names, no questions. Chidinma closed her door and pressed her back against it, heartbeat skittering. She had seen this costume. Benevolence over hunger, rescue over ransom. She kissed sleeping Chisholm's forehead and whispered, "We are not for sale." In the morning, Stella served compliments with pancakes, radiant. "Think big," she said. "You and the child could have comfort. You deserve softness." Chidinma smiled like a wall. Inside, decisions lined up, ready for the march of proof. She tucked her phone in a wrapper pocket and walked halls, mapped cameras, counted steps to stairwells. She noted plates through curtains, hours cars arrived, who giggled, who returned crying. Veer bargained, resolve closed the shop. When Stella hugged her goodbye, Chidinma's smile didn't move. Her mind carried a notebook nobody could confiscate. Evidence grew like careful vines. Chidinma recorded Stella's calls with a borrowed phone, time-stamped and backed up. She photographed number plates reflected in mirrors, logged first names, gifts exchanged, and pickup times. At the church, she saved files on a dusty laptop and a flash drive hidden inside an empty talc tin. Mama Ruth said little, but her prayers lengthened. "Patience," she murmured. "Truth is a river. It arrives." Chidinma practiced speaking to a camera without flinching. She wrote, crossed out, rewrote, and finally folded the words she could stand behind. Fear still knocked at dusk. Courage opened the door first. When the folder felt heavy enough to bend her resolve, she knew the hour was close. That night she plaited Chisholm's hair, breathed in roasted groundnuts drifting from the street, and slept like someone who had chosen a road and would walk it, rain or sun. She rehearsed dates, names, routes to the station, backup plans if doors refused to open. She taught Sister Ify how to find the files in case, and wrote a note to herself, "Do not go alone. Carry light, witnesses, peace." In the morning she steamed buns, sold out, and counted courage with change. In the church office, a ring light glowed. Chidinma pressed record. "My name is Chidinma Obi," she began. "I was cast out when I conceived. I nearly lost my child. I met a woman called Madam Stella. She recruits girls for powerful men. I have evidence." She played audio clips, prices named, weekends scheduled. She displayed plates, gift lists, a corkboard of rules. Her voice shook once, then found the note it needed and did not move. Sister Ify uploaded the video. Brother Cheek shared it. Mama Ruth prayed over the send button. The internet woke. Bloggers reposted, lawyers called, a radio host invited her. Police raided Stella's mansion before dawn. Girls emerged blinking, clutching borrowed shawls. Portraits came down. The nails were already loose. Chidinma stood outside the station with Chisholm on her hip and breathed a breath that finally belonged to her. She gave statements carefully, naming only what proof could bear. A counselor sat with the rescued girls, pouring water, repeating, "You are safe." A journalist asked, "Why risk this?" Chidinma answered, "Because silence rents rooms in our bodies. I want mine back." By nightfall, donations began to arrive, small, large, steadying her step forward. Donations became flour, sugar, rented space, a used mixer with a stubborn rattle. Chidinma registered a business. Chisholm's oven lilted. She painted the door sunflower yellow and hung a bell that laughed. She hired 2 single mothers, Amaka and Bisi, and paid them on time. They baked through dawn, coconut buns, meat pies, loaves with sesame crowns. A youth group learned measuring and hygiene, the wall filled with photos of first cakes. Chidinma kept accounts with precision and mercy it. Late payments noted, stories heard, boundaries kept. Customers came for taste and stayed for atmosphere. Radio low, air warm, smiles that didn't ask questions first. A framed sign by the counter read, "No shame served here." When Chisholm toddled through flour, staff cheered. The smell of bread carried down the street like a hymn that even doubters hummed. Suppliers began extending small credit because she paid promptly. An events planner ordered 5-tier cakes, then recommended her to 2 hotels. She learned to price labor, to restock yeast before it vanished, to schedule deliveries so drivers waited. At closing, she wrote notes. What sold fast, what lingered, who smiled wider about work. Progress moved like dough, slow, then sudden, then risen everywhere at once. News reached Ogudu the way scent reaches a kitchen, gradually, then everywhere. "The girl we chased," people asked. "She saved others, opened a bakery." Neka pressed a palm to her chest and wept without sound. Chief Obi listened to a radio report alone, cane across his knees, pride kneeling beside him like a chastened child. Neighbors grew generous with opinions. Some praised, some revised memories, some swallowed shame like bitter cola. At night, Chief walked the yard and spoke to his daughter's absence as if absence could answer. He remembered the day he thundered and the door he locked. He remembered how silence grew teeth. Regret is patient. It waits until the house is quiet. Then it speaks every language you understand. He rehearsed apologies, sentences cracking at the edges. He didn't know if forgiveness had a path back, but he began to sweep the veranda anyway, making space for steps returning. Elders softened greetings, unsure whether to say her name. A boy left market bread at the door before anyone saw. The compound hibiscus surprised everyone with new flowers. Even small color looked like rehearsal for joy. Chief whispered, "Chidinma," to the dark, and the dark kept the secret. Quietly. 3 years to the month, Chidinma received an order for a 5-tier wedding cake, white velvet, gold leaf, hibiscus sugarwork. Her team worked through nights, humming, steady. The reception hall glittered with chandeliers and soft drums. She delivered the cake with 2 assistants, checked the tiers, and finally looked up at the banner smiling over the stage. The groom's face hit her like a wave. Mr. Anayo, her father's friend, wrist heavy with the same kind of watch. The room tilted. She gripped a table, felt the lacquer stick to her palm. The bride, her client, hurried over. "You're early," she said, then paused. "Are you all right?" Chidinma swallowed air. "If I tell you something, will you believe me?" "The truth has a shape," the bride said quietly. "Say it." "He forced himself on me when I was a teenager," Chidinma whispered. "He is Chisholm's father." The words entered the hall like a bell nobody planned to ring, and nothing sounded the same afterward. The drummer missed a beat. A server halted with champagne. The groom laughed on stage, unaware, arranging his cuff. Somewhere, a phone camera lifted, curious without context, catching only her pale knuckles against the glossy table. Edge. The bride led Chidinma into a side room draped with flowers. Music thumped faintly through the wall. "Tell me again," she said, eyes steady. Chidinma repeated the story in fewer words, placing each like a stone. She did not perform pain. She stated it, then added, "I was threatened. I stayed silent to keep my mother safe." The bride's hands shook, then stilled. "Thank you," she whispered, "for trusting me before the world." She removed her veil and set it on a chair, as carefully as one lays down a childhood. She returned to the hall without ceremony, shoulders square, heart making its own drums. She did not climb the stage. She did not take his hand. In the dressing room she cried while friends gathered. Then she stood, wiped her face, and made 3 calls, to her father, her lawyer, and the police. Choice can be quiet and still cut iron. Outside, the cake stood unshaken, an anchor in sugar and light. A bridesmaid closed the door and leaned against it, guarding rumors. The band played notes that could not find purchase. Aunties whispered into fans, uncles refreshed drinks. On stage, the groom kept smiling. 1 week later, a black SUV rolled into Ogudu and stopped before the Obi compound. Villagers peered through curtains. Children abandoned bottle caps and chased the dust. Chidinma stepped out in a blue dress. Chisholm followed, clutching a small handbag with care. Neka reached the doorway. "Kept quiet all these years because you would never have believed me, Mr. Anayo, the man whom you called your brother. He's Chisholm's father." The crowd gasped in shock and surprise. "You know now," Chidinma said. "I kept quiet because I knew you would not believe me." The compound held its breath. Chief sank to his knees. "Forgive me," he said. "I threw away my own blood when I should have built a fence." Chidinma lifted him. "I forgive you. That is why I came." She handed him envelopes, title deeds in his name and her mother's, plus receipts proving debts paid. "I brought back what pride lost," she said. "Not for honor, for peace." Neighbors exhaled, like travelers stepping off a bus. Someone began a song. Another found harmony. The hibiscus stood straighter. Chisholm tugged Chief's sleeve. "Grandpa," she said, "are you crying?" He laughed through tears and carried her. Chief Obi did not wear pride like armor anymore. He wore humility like a clean shirt. With Chidinma's help, he repaired roofs, repainted walls, replanted cassava. Neka managed a new branch of Chisholm's oven in the village, teaching girls to measure, to wash hands, to price fairly. Hungry afternoons shrank a little. Laughter returned to the courtyard, not booming like before, but steady as a drum. On Sundays, Chief sat under the mango tree and listened more than he spoke. He learned to say, "I was wrong," and to say it plainly. Chidinma started a foundation, the Bridge Home, for abused girls and single mothers, offering shelter, legal aid, training. "We cannot return stolen time," she told volunteers, "but we can refuse to steal any more." Mama Ruth kept the books simple. Sister Ife ran workshops. Brother Chaik fixed stubborn machines. Evenings ended with prayers, not for enemies' defeat, but for light on the path ahead. Social workers visited. 2 survivors returned as volunteers, their laughter earned. Chidinma declined interviews that sensationalized pain. She chose stories that widened doors. The bakery sponsored school fees for 3 children, then 5. Progress tasted like bread. On the anniversary of her return, Chidinma stood at the bakery doorway as dawn lifted. She watched smoke rise from cooking fires and thought about chapters, how people enter mid-sentence and judge books. She was thrown away and still did not end. Pain was real, but it was not final. She chose work, truth, and tenderness. They chose her back. Neka arranged loaves in baskets. Chief watered hibiscus. Chisholm traced letters in flour, announcing each like a bell. Customers arrived, some from far neighborhoods, some from Ogudu houses that once closed their windows. "Welcome," Chidinma said. "We serve bread and second chances." In the afternoon, she visited the shelter and listened more than she spoke. At night, she told Chisholm, "A gate closed, another opened. We walked through." The child fell asleep, smiling. Chidinma stepped outside and let the quiet settle. The road that broke her had become the road she used to carry others home. She did not wear a crown, but people greeted her like rain after heat. She sent pastries to station guards who treated survivors gently. Before sleep, she wrote 3 lines in her notebook. "Do not despise beginnings. Tell the truth kindly. Keep walking. Good night."